I knew my back was broken immediately. This is my third back break I've had. And so I was like, hey, come over, take me out of here. And they medevac me to the St. George Regional. That night, actually, itself, I had surgery on, and they had to fuse from T4 to T8. That's some hardware.
Wow.
And crazy enough, I walked out of the hospital the next day. They didn't really want me to. And then I tried to go to the after party, and Rachel said no. And it was a good thing, because that night my nerve block wore off, and I was in a deep, dark place for like 6 days after that.
Joining us in the studio today is an American professional mountain biker, 2-time Red Bull Rampage winner, 16-time, although maybe 15-time participant, depending on who you ask, in the Red Bull Rampage. He's the only one to have contested every Rampage since 2001. Again, arguable. He competes in speed and style, slope style, dual slalom, dirt jumping, downhill events. He's also competed in BMX. He's an average world traveler, a mediocre fisherman, he says, an amazing father and husband. Please welcome to the studio, Kyle Strait. Hi, Kyle.
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So great to see you. So great to have you on the show. Gosh, we've known each other for a very long time. One of our inside little birdies tells me that you might have been connected to SRAM in some capacity for 18 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I honestly, I want to say we started in like 2002 or 3, and my dad had gotten some contacts, and I believe it was John Dawson himself, and he's like, oh, we're gonna get set up with these trailers, and we were buying trailers before that, and I was like, oh, well, what's SRAM, Dad? Like, what is it? And he's like, oh, well, like grip shift, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can dirt jump on that, Dad. He's like, you're gonna figure it out. I was like, oh, and so that's how we started, and from then on we just kept working together, and it was every single year. I mean, at least I was drivetrain or full cockpit setup, everything, suspension, rock shocks. Except I think 2009 was the only year I went on a team, and that was the one year. And then the year after that, 2010, I went back to full everything, rock shock, SRAM, everything, true evasive. But yeah, so it was pretty cool. I mean, it's still great. And then, I have such longtime friends like yourself, working with you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Kyle, like I said, great to have you on the show. For all of our listeners out there, what we like to do is start with some foundational stuff about you, starting with the big question. Where were you born?
I was born in Redlands, California. That's like right below Big Bear. And that's, it's like kind of Inland Empire of Los Angeles.
And you're not too far away from there right now, right?
Yeah, we're a little ways. We're about 2 hours, I guess west. We're in San Diego, East County, San Diego.
And you call that home today, right?
Yep. We've been in Alpine.
Guys are settling in.
Yeah, 9 years, and that's where we started our, Strait Acres property, and we just kind of moved out this way. I mean, my wife grew up roughly in this area, and she was like, "Oh yeah, let's go."
We can't talk about you without giving a little plug to your beautiful wife, Rachel. Tell us about Rachel.
Well, they talk. A lot of people talk about reachers and settlers, and we all know who was the reacher. That's me. So yeah, she's an amazing woman. We kind of grew up roughly in the same area, racing Norba races. She was full cross country. I was downhill dual slalom. I remember seeing her around like the pits when you were like, 8 years old, 10 years old. And I'm like, ooh, what's that over there? And I'm like, oh, it's cross country. She's a nerd. So it kind of went from there. And then, we'd seen each other at World Cups a couple times occasionally, and we're seeing other people. And then, I think when we were 26, 27, we started talking, and then just hit it off from there, and we've been together ever since.
Awesome. We jumped around a little bit. We kind of fast forwarded. I want to rewind now and get back to you, back to the basics.
I do that a lot.
Growing up.
Reel me in, right?
No problem. Growing up, what did your parents do when you were growing up?
My dad's done construction his whole life. He was framing houses when I was younger, and now he's just general contractor. My mom's done every job under the sun. Man, I mean, I think when I was younger, she was a funeral director, and she drove hearses, and then she went from that into like flying doves at weddings and funerals, and currently she's an Amazon driver. Like, dude, she's all over the place. But yeah, so grew up in like a pretty mellow income family.
Any siblings?
Yeah, I have a sister. She's 4 years younger than me. She actually works in construction. She works for Sunbelt.
Any chance you are a uncle?
Not yet. I can't wait though. I mean,
Are
I'm
you
I'm an
pushing her?
uncle, but yeah, I push her all the time. I'm an uncle to like all my buddies, right? All my buddies like Zink and Sage, all those guys had kids way before me. So I've been an uncle for a while, but I can't wait for my sister to have one.
Yeah, totally. Does she love being an aunt?
She does. Dude, this Christmas she bought her so much stuff, but definitely enjoys it.
I guess we just crossed over into the obvious, but you're a new father, right? You just had you're almost a 2-year-old, right?
Yeah, she's almost two, man, and it's been wild. It's been amazing. Um, you hear all the specific thing, like quotes and everything of that from other fathers, and then it really makes a lot of sense what they're saying when you have your own child. You can't really put it into words, and you like just go back to those same phrases that they were telling you before what it's like. So it's kind of
Yeah.
funny, but it's awesome.
It is true for all the books in the world and all the advice that people give, there's nothing like actually living it.
That's right.
All right, again, back to the basics. Kyle, what kind of things were you into as a kid, either sport or otherwise?
I was one of those super hyperactive kids, and so my dad put me in as many things as possible just to like keep me at a certain level. And let's see, I was born on soccer, and then I think when I was like 7, I started doing a little BMX, and then I was doing BMX and soccer, and then I picked up mountain biking when I was 8, and then I was doing BMX, soccer, and mountain biking. My dad was like, "Hey, I don't want to do this to you, but can you pick two?" And I was like, "I don't know, Dad. It's pretty tough." And so at that point, I got rid of soccer. I was like, "Man, my team kind of sucks, but I feel like I'm decent, you know." So, I went to individual sports after that. But yeah, so that's what started me riding mountain bikes. I mean, it started for me just riding bikes around the street like any other kid, and then my dad built me a jump, construction worker, right? And I
Nice.
just kind of went from there.
Those jumps early on, were they like just sort of triangular ramps or
Oh,
were they full on lips with kickers or what?
no, like 100% triangle on the sidewalk. I couldn't pick it up myself, but
Yeah.
I just leave it in the sidewalk and send it to flat.
Did you ever graduate from triangle to triangle or was it
Well,
always
it
triangle
was
to ramp
the
to flat?
whole, yeah, it was ramped to flat. Like before, it was like, if you went slow, you could just land on that backside. But I was like, no, I need way more airtime. So I
Yeah.
would just go faster and gap to the flat because it was all one piece at the time.
That's awesome. Did those ramps progress over time or did they get bigger and longer and all that?
Yeah, I feel like we're talking when I was 7 and 8, right? So I think I had that
Yeah.
one ramp, and then from then on, it went to like, okay, where can I? My dad was like, where can I take him to go get better, or learn more skills? We'd go. Then we started going to like mountain bike races, right? And all I wanted to do was race downhill or dual slalom, but there was no place to do it. So then my dad would be like, well, what about that skate park over there? I'd be like, okay, I'll learn to ride that.
Hmm.
Or what about these dirt jumps in that field? And so all of it came about just like I didn't have a place to do it. We didn't have like a big yard or anything until I was probably 12. Well, it wasn't a big yard, but it was a yard. And so until I was about 12, that's when I started building my own jumps in the backyard, like that. Just jump, nothing was taller than like my chest, but I was there every
Yeah.
single day till dark until my parents would turn the lights off in the backyard and be like, "Hey, come in. It's 10 o'clock."
What about school? Were you a good kid in school? Were you a rambunctious kid? Tell me about school.
I had a lot of trouble focusing. And I was really good until I would say sophomore year. I was around 3.0s until sophomore year, and when I was just pretty much not even at school. Um, I got pretty far behind. So I came in freshman, I was good. All junior high I was good. So sophomore year I started traveling, you know, racing World Cups and all that constantly. And I wasn't able to. Some of my teachers didn't give me all the work beforehand, so then I would just get super far behind
Yeah.
until after middle of sophomore year. That I went to like a different kind of school where I would visit a teacher once a week, and then I fully caught up and graduated and did pretty well.
And then at that time, did you sort of your career had started to develop? Did you just transition right out of high school into full-time racing?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, sophomore year I was already transitioning straight into like professional racing. I mean,
Yeah.
my first. In junior high, I was doing, seventh grade, eighth grade, I was doing professional events like dirt jump comps, things like that. And then once I was 16, then I was full racing World Cups and slope styles and obviously Rampage since I was 14. So, yeah, I was already on full track. But I mean, by the time I was 16, I was almost making more than my parents were. So it
So
was a
incredible.
professional career at that time.
So incredible. Before we jump into the heart of your career, let's go to this fun sprint round where I throw a bunch
Yep.
of this or that's at you and just see what you like. All right, you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, pancakes or waffles,
Waffles.
beer or wine.
Beer.
Easy one.
Yeah.
Anyone that knows you. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tea, huh? I don't know. I might
Cold.
not have guessed that one.
Ice cold tea. Unsweetened.
All right. Tacos or burritos?
Tacos.
Spicy or mild?
Spicy.
Cold weather or hot weather?
Hot. With no
Rain or
humidity.
snow? Yeah.
Rain.
The mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
Big cities or quiet suburbs?
As far away from people as possible.
Cars or trucks?
Trucks.
Pavement or dirt?
Dirt.
Gloves or gloveless?
Gloves.
Clipped in or flat pedals?
Flats.
Low pressure in your tires or high pressure in your tires?
Usually high.
Fix it yourself or take it to a mechanic?
Oof. Are we talking bikes? That's a tough one.
Bikes.
Oh, yeah. Mechanic for sure.
Bikes. Okay, how about cars then?
Oh, man. I try and fix them myself and I usually fail, but usually myself.
And the last one, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
All right. So now let's change gears and talk about your career. So you've got a long one and an early one. Started really young and you went full gas as an early teen. What was the first professional bike racing team that you can remember you being on?
Um, so professional is that one gets kind of vague, right? So I was on um the Devo development team by John Kemp.
Yeah.
I think that's how I originally got set up through SRAM. But I mean Dawson worked for him and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
John was
So
there.
yeah, so technically I was on like their C team because I was too young to be on like the junior team. So that's where I started, and then I was on the Max's team after that. Um, and then from then on, it just kind of. Then I went to Haro, so like I would say technically Devo, technically like the Max's team, because it
Yeah.
was back when they had Colin Bailey and April Ware, and they were like a full World Cup team, Norva team. So I would say that team.
Yeah. At what point did you and your dad was your manager for a long time, right? At what point did you and your dad sort of look at each other and say, you know what? This is working. Let's lean in on this and let's let's really go. You've got some success. Do you remember that point?
I don't think we had any specific conversations like that. I mean, my head was so down focused on just doing more and more and more, learning more things like tricks or jumps or going faster in downhill or slalom, that I didn't really like pay attention to anything until it got really serious, and I got got above my dad's like ability of like managing contracts or anything like that, and so we started using Martin Whiteley, and then that's when I was like, oh man, this is pretty serious. I'm like, actually, this is a career now, and I'm 16,
Yeah,
so
I've got an agent.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. So I guess it did work, So I mean, just as any kid, I was like, oh, you can be a professional mountain biker. I want to do that. And it's kind of one of those things that you're like, you could see a kid say that and you're like, okay, sure, buddy. And then, just I put my head down and did everything to make it happen.
So you did a lot of disciplines. You were doing BMX, you were doing downhill, you were doing, four cross, dual slalom, you were doing a bunch of different things. Was there one in particular though that you loved the most that you wanted to really pursue and like be the best at, or were you the all-rounder?
I feel like I've always been the all-rounder. With my personality, I feel that, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to do this trick and this trick, and that's what I was really surrounded by. And that was mainly because, there wasn't a Nova race every single weekend. There wasn't bike parks you could just go to on a weekday or a weekend. Those like Snow Summit had to be having a race for you to go ride the mountain. Um,
Right.
and so like in between those Norbas, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go dirt jump. I'm gonna go to the skate park, and then so that gave me a huge background and like other people to like follow and look up to. And so I've always done everything I could on a bicycle. I mean, I even did like I think I was 11 or 12, and I did like a triathlon. I was like, oh yeah, it's got a bike. Okay, I'll do it. So and like being such a hyper kid, I just was like, okay, like I'd like to do anything I can. I'll try this, I'll try that. And that's how Rampage, started the see how to jump comp. Like I saw that the jump on the side of the slalom just looking as a kid and was like, oh, I want to do that. And then next year my dad was like, hey, give him a chance. And they were like, yeah, we shouldn't. Um, so for me, I mean, it worked out, but, yeah, for me, it's kind of been all over the place, and one of my main things is why I've stayed always doing as much as I can, is because I love racing the clock, but it gets pretty monotonous, right? So you're training and you're everything that goes behind it, it gets like the same thing over and over and over again. I get kind of like mentally bored and then not as like excited about it. And I'm like, oh, well, I have a speed and style coming up, or I have Rampage coming up, and you can totally change gears. You're still riding, but you're changing gears in your head mentally, right? So like between racing the clock and going into a judged event, it's a totally different mindset and different skill level, and so it's always kept me really entertained and really, it keeps my focus, I'd say.
Yeah. I want to thank you for plugging the changing gears or using the changing gears description. That was really nice. Kyle, when you were in that sort of era of your career, who were some of the pro athletes that you looked up to, that you admired, that you wanted to be like, or you followed?
It's kind of funny. He's probably one of the worst ones, but definitely Sean Palmer, Kurt Voorhees, Colin Bailey, Lopes was in there, EC, and then that's just on the mountain bike side. I mean, a couple other guys. I mean, Corey Nastasia was like my favorite BMXer, Dave Mira. So like, I had such a wide variety of riding that I loved, that I could pull from every direction. Like one guy is like, Palmer's like the baddest mental rider and trainer out there, right? Where you're like, I don't know how he's so good. And I love his like awful attitude about it as well. Where he's just like, I'm just the best dude out there. And you're like, man, you are. And it's like crazy what I take from him is just like full mental side of things. And then I look at like a guy like Lopes, where, his career has lasted a super, super long time. And then he's one of the baddest dudes on a mountain bike, right? Like the way he trains and what he does. And then you go to like BMX side and you're just like, okay, those dudes were so focused and trained so hard for tricks, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of quite a big mixture.
Let's talk about training since you brought that up. I'm always curious when we talk with athletes about their training routine. Do they work out in the gym? Do they have, a coach? Do they care about nutrition and hydration? Or do they just ride their bike? Tell me about you.
Yeah, for me, it's been pretty random, semi random on what I train for, right? So it depends on the time of year. Um, my training revolves around kind of seasons, right? So with doing multiple events and different kinds of events, I train specifically for each one. So like during the wintertime, I feel like I get the most ride time out of the entire year, right? Normally, besides right now, because I'm home, I'm riding with friends, I'm riding local trails, and yeah, I'm just riding as much as possible. So I feel like I get the most seat time out of the entire year. And then once it starts getting into spring, you start getting your Crankworks events, you get in your Sea Otter. And that's when I switch gears into more of like a sprint setup, right? So where I start like building my legs for like big power and sprinting, for dual slalom. So from there, then it goes into, okay, what's my next event? So each one of my training things goes into what is after that. And by the time you get into like, September, most of my main events are done, and my only event left is Rampage. And I go into like a totally different type of training, right? So once
Yeah.
September hits, I go straight. I do not touch any other bike. I don't care what photo shoot it is. I don't care what like hey, will you come on this e-bike ride with us? I'm like, nope, not coming. Because I want to be so finely tuned to my downhill, like my Rampage bike, that I only ride that bike. I've been to like skate park on it before. I like did some like
Hmm.
cruising around the street with Rachel. I was like, all right, I'll just take my downhill bike. Because it's just I want to be so finely tuned with that bike coming into Rampage because it's so important to me to be just perfectly on the bike.
Yeah. Now, are you refining that strategy yourself or are you working with a coach?
Yeah, that's all refined through just hard lessons myself. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, like I've been with a couple trainers over the years and different coaches and spoken with other athletes about what type of training they do. And I feel like it works out pretty good. There are certain times where I'm like, man, I probably should have, rode a little longer, meaning like I didn't last as long in that race as I needed to, or, like, I wish I had a better jump to try that specific trick before this, so it's kind of like, I would say 99% of the time it works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've learned a whole buttload over all the years.
How about nutrition or hydration? Do you care what you put in your body or do you feel like, everything kind of works out?
Well, I am kind of like a trash can, especially loving beers, but I do work really hard on like trying not to be. And there are times where I succeed and do well. But yeah, I mean, for me, hydration is key. I mean, I drink so much water just in day-to-day life. And then I don't usually get dehydrated like on rides. So yeah, I mean, hydration is key for sure. And I don't have the best diet, but I definitely work on it.
Yeah. Well, you certainly take care of yourself. So something's working. So keep
Oh,
on doing what you're doing.
I got one last thing for gym though. I have not been in the gym and like going to the gym on purpose to work out probably in 15 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just, with my injury, they're like, you're going to have to go to the gym. I was like, nope. They're like, yeah. I was like, okay. So I'm actually signing up for the gym like this week.
Well, don't you have you must have enough equipment in your home garage to make your own gym, don't you?
Yeah, I mean some things for sure. But I don't personally like do a lot of gym work. With me
Yeah.
building so much and then like my specific types of training that I do for each event. My body type, I build muscle really, really easy. And I found that when I did gym work, I just gained weight. Like it was just wild. So, if I do go to the gym and when I do, it's like super lightweight and just tons of reps. So I don't really need a whole lot of weight or setup to be able to, um, be fit, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you just briefly mentioned your accident, and so I suppose we should walk into that day. So
Yeah.
Rampage 2022. Tell us about that.
You know what? It's I've been injured at Rampage a few times, but not like ones where, and usually they're in my actual runs itself, like a second run or something like that. This year it was a tough one, man. I mean, the build, the entire build we had was a really big build. So I don't know if everyone knows, but when we go to Rampage, it's an open area, and you choose wherever you want to go down the hill, and then you build that entire line yourself. So all those big landings you see and everything we ride is built by us, the riders. We have two other.
Yeah, tell the audience a little bit more about that. There's a certain amount of people and time and sandbags. Give us some more detail around that.
Yeah, some more details would be, I think usually there's about 20 riders or less that are invited to this competition in the southern desert of Utah, and it's a judged event. You build your entire line, right? So they basically take these a big area, which would be in between like, three different ridges, and then they go, okay, hey, you can go anywhere you want in between this, and what you're gonna do is we're gonna judge you on it. And so as athletes, we go, okay, I like this line, I like this part, I can build this, and you just build whatever you want to ride and what you think is going to score you the best. You then get 6 days, 6 days to build that. There's a site check day, 4 days of building, a rest day, then 4 more days of building and practice. So you get 4 days of practice, and then the finals, and that's when you see it on TV, and that's what happens. So we were very last day into building, or no, it was actually second day of practice. So we had only 1 or 2 days left before. Actually, no, this was our last day. Actually, this was
Yeah.
our last day. Sorry, last day of practice and building before the event itself, and I had to test a couple different new drops in the line, and unfortunately, I came up short, about 6 or 7 inches short, on a drop itself, and then straight up bounced from there, probably 30 feet down the hill, hit the ground, and then hit
Mm.
tomahawked, and then hit the ground a second time, and that's when like my body just boom stopped. And crazy enough, I didn't get knocked out, and I was like, okay, first hit, like in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, that hurts, but it's okay. And then I hit second time, and I was like, that was not good. Ended up getting medevaced out. I knew my back was broken immediately. This is my third back injury or back break I've had. And so I was like, hey, come over, take me out of here. So yeah, they medevaced me to the St. George Regional. And that night actually itself, I had surgery on T 4, 5, 6, no, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, and 6 were broken, and they had to fuse from T4 to T8 with some
Wow.
hardware. So yeah, and crazy enough, I walked out of the hospital the next day. They didn't
Wow.
really want me to, and then I tried to go to the after party, and Rachel said no, and it was a good thing because that night my nerve block wore off, and I was in a deep dark place for like 6 days after that. But
Ooh.
yeah, doing good now, and still in recovery mode. I'm about 2 months, a little over 2 months out now, and from surgery, and I'm doing really well. I have really good mobility, and now I'm just currently working on building muscle back and getting back ready to race.
Are you wearing a brace at all, or are you free of the brace?
No, for the brace, I wore it maybe 3 days, just to like help posture.
Yeah.
And since that, dude, it killed my ribs. Like, cause it just pushes super hard, and you're not going to run it loose, cause you want that
Yeah.
support, and it murdered. I had like, I think that actually hurt for the most for the first week was my rib cage was hurting. Um,
Bruised your ribs.
Bruised my ribs, and probably a lot from the injury itself as well. Yeah, dude, like it was hard to breathe for a long time. But yeah.
So Kyle, first of all, super excited that you are on the road to recovery.
Thank you.
Very excited to see you up and around and moving and walking and riding. So Congrats on that. I do want to ask a question though that I hear often related to Rampage. And it's a simple one, and it's just a one-word question. Why?
Why? You know what? It's a funny one to me. I mean, I enjoy riding that type of terrain more than anything. Um, and even if that event was long gone, or you know, I retired from it or from whatever, I'm still going to be out there doing that. The It blows my mind what I can get away with on that terrain. Meaning, like, how
Yeah.
steep is something I can ride, how fast I can do, how much control you can still actually have, because you can't get away with that same type of riding anywhere else. Um, it's a combination of like soft dirt plus like the cliffs you have and the compressions to, like, check up and hold, like in certain lines. It's I don't know, I just truly enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll buy it. It is pretty incredible though. I mean, 16 or so rampages, you keep coming back. You've been injured a few times. This one's a big one.
Yeah.
2023, 2024, will you be back?
Yeah, I'll be back this year for sure. As long as that event keeps happening, I'll be there. It's
And Rachel's approved this already?
Oh yeah, I tried to apparently, like midnight after the surgery, I was telling her, I said, "Hey, I know it takes a minute. I'm feeling way better. I want them to start the paperwork. I think if we can go back and sleep for 2 hours, I think I can do a little bit of practice in the morning. I think I can still ride down the hill." And she's like, "Honey, stop." She's like, "No, you're all hopped up on drugs." I was like, "No, no, no, but I feel good. Like I feel much better." And
It's the drugs.
I tried to convince her, that we could go, that I could make it.
Oh, that's incredible. Um, the next part of our show officially was close calls and, challenges, but I think we've kind of covered that. But how about just in sport in general? Forget about accidents and injuries. I think we've covered that. In the world of sport, have there been any obstacles in the way of, that prevented you from doing what you wanted to do or going where you wanted to go, or something that you had to overcome?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, just like you're saying with injuries, that's one obstacle to overcome. A lot of it sometimes is like, mental side, right? So like overcoming how to figure out how to do a specific trick when no one's ever done it before. Having a block on training, having a block on, like, okay, I don't really like this event, but you know what, I just got to put my head down. And like sometimes the courses are awful, right? Sometimes it's like, what am I going to do with this thing? And I don't really want to be here, but you know what? I got to do this. I'll make it through this race. And, I feel much better when I overcome that and succeed, and then move on to the next one, and then go to a race, or, wherever, where it's like I'm having fun again. So I think throughout my career, I've figured out, to base where I go and what events I do on what makes me stoked. What makes me stoked to go out and go, I'm going to put all my 120% effort in to compete and win at this event or be on the podium. And I found over all the years, like, that, like, if I'm just sent all over the place. So in my younger years, we'll cover this actually. In my younger years, when I was probably 15, 16, 17, 18, I traveled all over the place to go to, like, these urban races. Red Bull would send me to, like, Bolivia. They'd send me to, like, some places were cool. Colombia was pretty cool. But just in general, they would send me all over the place, and I would be there for a week or so by myself. And the people that are there would either be, afraid to talk to me, because I was Kyle Strait mountain biker, or they didn't speak English, and so I would be sitting by myself for a week at a time, just like solo, like
Mm.
super, and I get like depressed. I was like, man, I'm over. So that at that point, it basically like turned me a lot turned me off from riding in general. Like I would get home from those trips and not touch my bike, and so until about 2012, I like basically had to build my career back up from like 2009 to 2012. And once I figured out in like 2011 and 12 what makes me happy, what makes me tick, what makes me keep going on a mountain bike and compete and do well, was just I got to pick my own events, and so from then on, it just kind of like, I don't know, it's been great ever since. So, I mean, those are some adversity things I think I've definitely overcome throughout my entire career.
Yeah. Kyle, you've had a lot of amazing success and victories and cherished moments and events that you've participated in. Is there one event that sticks out aside from your own event? Is there one event or victory that sticks out as just the coolest, most cherished moment?
Well, thank you. Honestly, my 13 win at Rampage, that was a big one, and I was, even at that time, I was like, I don't know how many Rampages I'm going to do, like I could see a lot of things were changing, which they're still changing to this day on, the way they judge the event. Um, but dude, that was a big one. That made me the first two-time winner, because apparently there was a curse on it, before that. But that one, and I also had a other couple big ones that were big for me. Not the biggest on paper, but my first top 20 in a World Cup, that was a big one for me. 2011, no, 2010. 2010, I got 12th a World Cup, and man, that was a big one for me. I mean, being, racing my whole life, being a free rider, being like totally like a different style than everyone else there.
Yeah.
Um, I felt so like stoked on that. And then of course, like there's another one that pops in my head. The first time I beat Brian Lopes, that was pretty special. And it was in the
Someone you looked
final.
up to, yeah.
Yeah, someone I looked up to, someone that is so badass, right? And watched him from like, 8 years old all the way up through, and being able to beat him.
Was it Sea Otter dual slalom?
No, it was actually one of the Crankworks Whistler ones, maybe 2009 or eight, somewhere in there. Eight, 8 or 9, somewhere in there. And I was so stoked. I was like, man, I did it. I'm the man now. Like I beat the guy, and so that was a pretty special one as well. You know,
How about this? Is there an event out there that you haven't yet done that's on your list to do?
um, there's lots of events I want to win, but one of the events that I'd like to do is hardline. I'd like to do that
Mm,
one. I was supposed to go the first year they had it, then they changed the dates, and every year since then it's been kind of too close to Rampage to go out there and like set up to train for it, and then like switch gears and go straight into tricks. So it's been really hard, but I would really truly enjoy going to that event.
yeah. Yeah, that is a cool event. Get some fun coverage. Kyle, you're 3 hours south of Los Angeles. Actually, 3 hours south of the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles. You ever been on TV for riding your bike?
Yeah, a couple times. I would say the latest time that I did as a stuntman, for a show called Animal Kingdom, and they had a big wig on and a fake beard, and we did a episode for that show, and that was pretty fun. A couple other commercials. I think I was in a Coors Light commercial with me, Zink, and Rach. That was pretty cool. Um,
Oh, nice.
so TV wise, like for Hollywood style, that, and then obviously for Rampage, NBC, ESPN, stuff like that. But those other jobs are really fun, actually.
Yeah, yeah. How about any TV commentating or race commentating? Have you ever done that?
A couple times. more on the short side come in for some, expert analysis type thing and chat with how
Yeah.
the races are going. Some crankwork stuff. What else? One time I did do for Zink's like a 100-foot backflip he did on ESPN. I was actually riding directly behind him with the helmet cam. That was pretty cool
Mm,
because I could get within like an inch of his tire and he would trust me and
yeah.
obviously I'm not going to crash him or what I'm not going to bother him. So that was actually really cool. Um, yeah, not too much announcing. I struggle at I can chat with you for hours. I really truly struggle at like hitting key points and memorization. Oh man, I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
bad at that. I mean, even when I'm doing, like sponsor help or anything like that, doing commercials for them, I am like, can I use my own words and can I switch it up every time I say it? Because I'm not going to remember anything. So I'm really bad at that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Maybe it's the head injuries. I don't know.
Kyle, let's change gears to sort of the last section. We call it the cool down, but it's really not a cool down. This is the special part where we talk about our partners like yourself that do just great things for community. And you've got several of them. I mean, you're a trail builder, you coach juniors, you've got your own event. I'd love to just hear more about all that stuff. Let's start with building trails. Tell us
Building
about that.
trails. Yeah, I mean, for one, I've been building jumps since I was a little kid. I mean, in the backyard, and I truly enjoy it, and I've been doing it for a long time. I mean, whether that's like building my line at Rampage or building all the stuff at my house we have at Strait Acres. I started just recently the last couple of years building slalom tracks, right, for events. Now I build the Sea Otter Slalom. I'm helping with a couple other races. I build the track for my own race in Big Bear. Um, and I'm actually just starting to do a lot of work with trail building in San Diego. So that's for like on public land. So I'm really excited to start like transitioning into building trails for everyone for everyone to ride. You know what I mean? Where you don't have to pay to sign up. Sign up at a race to go ride something I built. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about doing that. I've done a lot of um, work with some of like the bike parks that have been showing up in San Diego, where I'll be kind of like a liaison and like, hey, do these plans look okay? These are our city plans to build this new pump track or dirt jumps park, and I go, hey, we should probably change this, and this, and to make it flow better or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I truly enjoy building and I love seeing more and more people on bicycles.
That's great. What's the organization in San Diego or the local, trail community club or org called?
Just San Diego Mountain Bike Association. Yeah, they're
Got it.
they're based here and they're really cool people. And San Diego's kind of like a pretty big area in a way, to where there's lots of different parts of the county. Um, but we have quite a few things starting up that are really good.
That's great. Let's change gears a little bit to coaching. Through the years, I've watched you and others have watched you spend a fair amount of time coaching juniors, either through teams or camps or clinics. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I actually started coaching over 10 years ago at Highland Mountain Bike Park in New Hampshire. And I started just kind of randomly. I'm like, hey, is there anything else like you guys do during the events or during the summer? And they're like, yeah, we're going to start coaching kids here. And I was like, oh, okay, I could do that. And I've truly enjoyed, the process of coaching kids or adults and stuff and seeing that like that starry eye opening experience they have when it just suddenly clicks, whether that's a jump or a downhill section or maybe a new trick. That I truly enjoy that experience. And I enjoy coaching. I feel like I have a lot of insight and a lot of time that I've had just learning mechanics of how to ride a bicycle. And so I'm happy to try and explain that hopefully to people. I mean, sometimes it takes a few different explanations to try and show them how to do it, which is great. I mean, I enjoy the process of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's cool to be able to give back and pass on that knowledge. Maybe lastly, closing us out, tell us about the event Strait Acres. What is it? What is it all about? How do people get involved? What type of disciplines do you have there? Tell us about Strait Acres.
Yeah, for sure. Strait Acres started in 2020 at our house, actually. When a lot of our events were canceled, we had, a couple of sponsors pushing back, like, "Hey, if you're not doing events, why are we paying you?" And I'm like, "Well, that's not my fault." So I was like, "Fine, I'm gonna make my own event." And especially with learning, doing a lot of the Crankworks events for many years, I found a lot of like hiccups that they had, right? So like, it was like, why do we have practice at the same time as slalom is just pump track? Like, you want us to do both events, let's try and figure this out. So honestly, I wanted to put my money where my mouth was, and we made our own event at our house. And the first year there was 16 pro women and pro men invited, and we had an amazing first year and raced on the track that I have at my own house. And then from there, we kind of started looking out for a new location for it, because I mean, even at 16 pro men and women and like industry only that were part of the sponsors, we had like 150 people at our house, and it was like, I don't know if we can do that. And Rachel was pregnant at the time. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if we can have any more people. And I truly wanted to be able to have every single class as well. And so with that became, the Snow Summits Strait Acres Slalom Invitational. So the last 2 years we've had it there, and the class has gotten big, right? So like we do just slalom there, and it's usually in August during summer. And last year we had 250 slalom competitors. Wow. The year before was almost 300. And so we also have every single class out there. I mean, there are still some complainers out there. It's hard to make everybody happy. So we have from, I think, 10 all the way up. So 10 age group, 12 age group, 14, 16. So we have all the classes for the kids, and then adults across the board, beginners, amateurs, experts, pros. We give out tons of prizes for all the amateur classes. And then you also get to race a track that, I built. So I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes it's maybe I think it's cooler than it is, but I think that from the outside, I get a lot of feeling that a lot of people love looking at the things that I create at my house, and so I figured this would be a great opportunity for people to come ride a course that I built.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, congrats on doing that. I know the world needs it. We need more slalom events. There just aren't enough in the world, right?
Yeah, I know, right? They're so much fun. So good for spectating too, right?
Totally. Well, Kyle, we are out of time. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I love hearing your story. I hope others do as well. Please give a big hello to Rachel and Stevie for us. We miss you guys. We hope to see you at a Sea Otter or Crankworks or Rampage in the near future.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, man. Thanks, Kyle. Cheers, buddy.